The economy is cooling off, inflation is heating back up, and now the Federal Reserve is being split down the middle.
Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that consumer prices rose 0.7% last month, pushing the annual inflation rate to its highest point in 4 months at 2.7%.
Half of them want to cut interest rates, the other half are saying hell no.
It was just a couple committee members who were open to a rate cut at the coming meeting. Some officials seeing no rate cuts this year.
But here's the twist. President Donald Trump just called the Fed chair numbskull, and he is demanding rate cuts right now.
If we cut our interest by 1 point for years, we save $300 billion. If we cut it by 2 points, we save $600 billion a year. $600 billion because of one numbskull.
This isn't just some technical debate in Washington. This affects your mortgage, your rent, auto loans, and of course, credit cards. If the Fed cuts rates too soon, it could cause inflation to surge again. But if we wait too long, we could slide right into a recession. So what happens next? And more importantly, how does this impact you? So how bad is it really? The US economy just shrank for the first time in a year.
Now, the US economy shrank by 0.3% in the first quarter of this year, the first drop for 3 years.
GDP dropped 0.5% last quarter.
For the first quarter of this year, the Commerce Department's third and final report shows that GDP fell at an annual rate of 0.5%.
Economists say GDP fell because of a surge in imports as companies rushed to bring in foreign goods before Donald Trump imposes his tariffs.
That's not a full-blown crisis, but it is a warning shot. Consumer spending, it's slowing down. Job growth, stalling. Layoffs, they haven't spiked, but hiring has cooled off. And inflation, the thing the Fed's been obsessed with the last 2 years, just hit 2.7%.
Consumer prices rose at an annual rate of 2.7% in June. That's actually up from 2.4% in May.
Not panic level, but definitely not what they want to see before cutting interest rates. It's like trying to drive a car with 1 foot on the gas and 1 foot on the brake. The Fed wants to keep inflation in check, but the rest of the economy is flashing slowdown signs. So the big question is, does the Fed slam the brakes harder or finally let up? Inside the Federal Reserve right now, it's chaos. They're still doing press briefings in suits with monotone voices. But behind the scenes, it's a full-blown game of tug-of-war. On one side, you have people like Christopher Waller and Michelle Bowman saying, look, the slowdown, it's already here. We need to cut rates now before things get worse. But on the other side, Jerome Powell and the more cautious voices, they're worried that inflation has not cooled enough. And they are terrified of moving too fast and losing control. This split is not normal. Usually the Fed tries to present a united front, but this time even the insiders can't agree, which makes markets nervous and adds pressure from all sides. And as the divide grows, someone else is pushing forward on their own agenda. Donald Trump, who has never been shy about letting the Fed know how he feels. And he is not holding back. He literally called Jerome Powell a numbskull, saying that he's making it too hard for Americans to buy homes. And it's not just name calling. Behind the scenes, there are rumors that Trump could possibly fire Powell and replace him with someone that will slash interest rates.
Word hit the tape that a senior administration official said President Trump's likely going to fire Jay Powell.
But here's the problem. The Fed is supposed to be independent. That's the entire point. They are not supposed to jump every time a politician tweets. But when markets hear stuff like this, they panic. Because if the Fed becomes a political tool, investors lose faith. The dollar weakens and inflation could spiral further. So this isn't just Trump versus Powell. It's politics versus policy. And the stakes are getting bigger by the day. Okay, so let's say the Fed does cut rates. What actually changes for you and me? First, borrowing will get cheaper. Mortgage rates, they come down. Car loans get a little bit more affordable. There's a chance that credit card interest rates could pull back a little bit, at least if the bank and lending institutions feel generous. For businesses, lower interest rates means cheaper access to capital. So you might see more hiring, more inventory, maybe even some price cuts to keep demand flowing. Wall Street, they love it. Stocks usually shoot up when we see interest rate cuts. It's like sugar for the market. But here's the catch. Rate cuts don't fix everything. They don't build homes. They don't lower food prices. And if inflation is still lingering, it could increase the prices across the board. So yeah, rate cuts, they do give the economy a short-term boost, but if it's done at the wrong time, it's like pouring gas on a fire that's not fully out. Here's the danger if the Fed cuts rates too soon. While inflation is bubbling underneath, we'll go all the way back to square one. Remember, inflation already surprised everyone by rising again last month. And with tariffs driving up import costs, prices, they might not fall anytime soon. If the Fed jumps the gun and starts cutting now, it could undo the last 2 years of inflation progress. The cost of everything, food, rent, gas, it could all get a little bit more expensive.
The price of groceries continues to be on the rise.
86% of consumers reported feeling frustrated with rising grocery prices, and over a third said they have resorted to buying fewer items to save money.
And once the markets globally think the Fed is getting soft, long-term bond yields spike. Borrowing then actually gets more expensive for Americans. The exact opposite of what everyone wants. That's why Powell is cautious, because one wrong move and suddenly your groceries cost more. Your rent goes up and the dollar weakens.
The US dollar just crashed to its lowest level since early 2022, plummeting nearly 10% since Donald Trump's inauguration in January.
While the Fed debate rages, something big just happened in crypto. President Donald Trump signed the Genius Act, the first major U.S. stablecoin regulation ever.
President Trump is also taking a victory lap today, signing into law the first ever major federal cryptocurrency legislation.
This Genius Act will unlock American dominance in the crypto industry by creating clear rules of the road.
It creates a legal box around digital dollars. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong called this moment historic and said the law creates regulatory clarity, something the crypto market has been demanding for years. So why does this matter to you? Because if stablecoins take off, it could reshape everything, from remittances to how banks and businesses move money. As Bitcoin and Ethereum surged to record levels, everyone is watching the crypto market. What if I told you there was one company that crushed both? And it's already listed on the NASDAQ. DeFi Technologies, ticker DEFT, isn't just riding the crypto wave. They're building the infrastructure underneath it. They have quietly become one of the most profitable public crypto companies on the planet. DeFi Technology is only one of 3 profitable public crypto companies. Their subsidiary, Valor, manages over $800 million in crypto-based exchange-traded products, making it easier for institutions to get crypto exposure without holding coins directly. They are also the largest institutional owner of Solana in North America, earning 8.5% yield on staked assets. That's tens of millions in revenue just from staking. And it's led by Oliver Ruzzi Newton, one of the earliest crypto miners turned founder, who still owns roughly 50 million in shares himself. With over 75 crypto products, a record-breaking arbitrage desk, and a PE ratio still under 10, DeFi Technologies is positioning itself like the BlackRock of crypto. Click the link in the description to take a look for yourself. And it ties right back to our main story. Easy money, political power, market control. Trump's pushing 2 big levers: central bank power through rate cuts, and now digital currency power through a new crypto regime. Let's forget the headlines for a second and talk about you. If the Fed cuts rates, sure, you could see the APR in your credit card drop a little. Maybe you could potentially refinance your auto loan if you have one. Maybe your monthly mortgage payment gets a little bit later if you have an adjustable rate mortgage. But will this be felt next week at the grocery store? Probably not. In fact, cutting rates too soon could cause rent prices to go up, because as borrowing costs go down, investors want to borrow against their buildings to acquire more assets if they think inflation is going to soar and persist in the future. As investors start to get more and more control over the housing market and apartment buildings, well, what's going to happen? They're going to do what's best for themselves and for their investors, which will likely be increasing rents. So that's the weird thing about interest rates. They're supposed to help everyday Americans, but if they move at the wrong time, they could squeeze the average consumer much harder. And now with stablecoins backed by the US government, there's a world coming where your money can move a lot faster. But so could scams, volatility, and decisions made by people that you've never voted for. So yeah, it sounds really far away. Fed meetings, crypto bills, inflation reports, but it lands right here in your wallet. Wall Street watching all of this like a hawk, reacting in real time. Every time a Fed official will hint at a rate cut, the market jumps. Stocks rally, crypto spikes, investors are open to pouring into riskier assets. Why? Because cheap money makes everything go up, at least in the short term. But underneath that optimism, There's nervous energy. Bond yields are getting jumpy. Traders can't agree on what the Fed will do next. And volatility is creeping back in. Investors love rate cuts until they remember why it's happening. Slowing growth, political pressure, inflation risk. If it starts to feel like the Fed is losing control, panic will set in. And then when that happens, Wall Street panics, and then it goes straight to Main Street. So where does all of this go? Right now, there are 3 paths in front of us. None of them are perfect. Scenario 1, the Fed cuts rates now. That could give the economy a boost, stocks climb, borrowing, of course, gets cheaper, but if inflation pops back up, then we're right back where we started, possibly worse. Scenario 2, the Fed holds. They play it safe. Inflation hopefully continues to cool down, but growth keeps slipping too. Layoffs increase, the market gets shaky, and pressure builds for someone to act. And then there's scenario 3. Trump fires Powell. Suddenly, the Fed's power and independence is in question. The markets, they could freak out. Long-term borrowing costs could spike, and America's credibility with overseas investors gets a little shaky. All 3 paths are risky. There's only one thing for certain. The decisions made over the next few months could reshape your finances for the next few years. So what do you think the Fed should do? Should they cut rates now and risk inflation, or hold steady and risk a recession? And what about the stablecoin bill? A smart move or a ticking time bomb? Let's talk about this in the comment section below. And for more information on today's sponsor, you can click the link in the description below this video. Catch you next video.